main point of Ecclesiastes 9 is that we have no idea what's going to happen to us tomorrow, and we could even die. And so make the most of your time today. He says in verse 1, when I look out at the righteous and the wise men, all of our deeds are in God's hands, and we have no idea whether it's going to be love or hatred. Anything awaits us. This could be the idea that we don't know if people tomorrow will love or hate us, or if we ourselves will love or hate our lives tomorrow based on what happens. In fact, we could even die. In verse 2, he says, it is the same fate for all. We're all going to die, whether you serve God or not. And that could happen tomorrow. There could be something great that happens to us tomorrow, but we could also get hit by a bus. And for many people, the madness of an uncertain future drives them insane and leads them to do evil because they think whether I'm righteous or wicked, we're all going to die anyway, so I might as well do evil and live it up. And it can lead some people to be fatalistic and nihilistic and think life doesn't matter at all. It drives people insane where they think it doesn't matter how we live or whether we live. But Solomon knows that's not the right response to the uncertainty of tomorrow. In fact, that's the fool's response. And one day, those fools will be judged by God for their evil, like he said back in chapter 8 and verse 13. Instead, he tells us to enjoy life right now while you can, savor every moment, and view it all as a blessing and a gift. In fact, he changes his tune here because before, he talked about how it's better to have never been born than to live in this sin-cursed world full of vanity. But here, he says, actually, it's better to be a live dog than a dead lion. Dogs in their day were not pets. They were scavengers, and they had rough, hard, difficult lives. And he's saying it's better to be alive and to be a dog than to be a lion with all this strength and yet be dead. Why? Because for all of the miserable things about this life, there are good things about this life as well. Like in verses 7 through 9, we get to eat and drink and be merry and enjoy sex with our spouse. And we get to feel in verse 6 all of the emotions of life. Yes, we get to feel sadness, but we also experience happiness and joy and passion. And people who are dead don't get to experience any of the enriching emotions of life. Even anger and hatred make you feel alive, like you have value and someone violated your boundaries and you matter, and they don't get to experience any of that, nor do they have any memories. We make great memories that we can look back on, and they make us smile. Even in times of difficulty, we can look back on the good times, and it brings joy to our hearts. And so while sometimes life is so painful, it feels like it's better to be dead than alive, objectively, that's not true, because then you miss out on all of the good blessings of life that God gives us along the way. And because our time is short and we have no idea what's happening tomorrow, he says in verse 10, make the most of your work. Whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all of your might, because you don't know if you're going to be able to work tomorrow. And if you die tomorrow, you definitely won't be able to. So take advantage of being as productive and helpful to society and to your family as possible while you have the time and the ability. Now, some people might fool themselves into thinking that I can control the future by training and being the swiftest one in the race, or being the strongest warrior in this battle, or being the wisest person in the world. But he says, in this life, you can't control the future. And even the fastest person in a race may get injured the day before, or they may sleep in and miss the race. You can be the strongest warrior there is, but you may get outsmarted, and your enemy does something that was completely unexpected, and all of your strength is now useless. Or you may be the most able-bodied man or woman there is, but then you die. And what did all of your abilities matter? In verse 12, he says we're like fish, just swimming along, minding our own business, thinking that everything's going to go our way, and all of a sudden, a net comes out of nowhere and snatches us up and we die. Same with birds who are walking along on the ground and get trapped in a snare. This goes all the way back to chapter 3, where he says there's not really any difference between human beings and animals. We all die, and we all die at unexpected times. Anything awaits us. And so make the most of the time you have. Now, this message is not very popular. We don't like to be reminded of our mortality, but actually it's the key to making the most of each moment. If you don't accept that your life is only momentary, you'll take the moments for granted. But if you know today is all I'm guaranteed, you'll make the most of today, and you'll look for the goodness in every one of God's blessings and give thanks to Him as much as you can, and to enjoy the sunsets and the breeze and the birds birds chirping and hot coffee and intimate times with your spouse and playing and having fun with your kids, because you know this moment right now is all you have. There's a song that came out not too long ago, and in the chorus he says, I don't want to act like there's tomorrow. If you act like tomorrow exists, when it's not guaranteed, you won't make the most of today. And Solomon finishes this chapter in verses 13 to 18 by showing that most people don't appreciate wisdom. They'll take it when it's helpful to them in the moment, but most of the time, we don't want to hear wisdom. We'd rather hear the fools because they make us feel better about life. And he says, I saw something really impressive. There was this small city and it was surrounded by a huge army, and it seemed like they were completely outmatched, but there was a poor man in the city who was so wise, he delivered that city by his wisdom. Now, he doesn't give us any detail, but obviously he had some wise strategy to overcome this daunting enemy. And it's an illustration of verse 11 that the battle does not always go to the better warriors. But the problem is, after this wise man saved them, nobody remembered him or honored him because he had low status in their society and he was more soft-spoken. We would much rather listen to the important people and to the more boisterous and loud people who tell us what we want to hear, rather than the quiet, soft-spoken nobodies who actually know the secrets to life. We'll give our attention to sinners over wise and righteous people. And it doesn't matter how many wise and righteous people you have among you, all it takes is one sinner to lead everybody astray. And so his point in context is what he's saying about how we may die tomorrow and we have no idea what's going to happen may not be popular, and we may not want to listen to that message, but if we do, it'll be our strength. And so the application, even though it's hard to think about, is to ask ourselves how we would live today if we knew we were going to die tomorrow. Wouldn't we want to soak up every blessing we could? Wouldn't we want to tell our families how much we love them and spend time with God in prayer and in His Word? And if we had some task to complete, either at work or around the house, wouldn't we do our best to make sure it was done well so people would know you always did the best you could? The point is, every moment would be precious to you, something to soak in and to give thanks to God for. And you'd have a new appreciation for the blessing of just being alive. Even as painful as things are in this world, you would still be grateful for every breath you had. There was a famous song in the 2000s by Tim McGraw called Live Like You Were Dying. And in the chorus, he says, I went skydiving, I went Rocky Mountain climbing, I loved deeper, I spoke sweeter, and I gave forgiveness I've been denying. Having the wisdom to not hold on to a tomorrow that we know nothing about and that may never come gives us the wisdom to hold on to every good moment today and to not waste time complaining about and being vexed by the bad moments. And all of this points to Jesus, who said in Matthew 6 and verse 34, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will care for itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Now, Jesus' emphasis here was more on the painful vanity of life and how this sin-cursed world brings trouble to us. But the point remains, all we have is today. And we've got to give today our full attention. Yes, to deal with the troubles, but also to live in the blessings of the moment, just like Jesus did, going around eating and drinking with a cheerful heart in people's homes, and walking and teaching as he looked out at the flowers of the field and told parables, and everything he did with all of his might, because he knew today was all he had. In fact, in John 9 and verse 4, he told his disciples, we must work the works of him who sent me as long as it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. Jesus knew he only had 3 years to accomplish his mission before he was crucified. And so he made the most of his time every day, training his disciples, healing people, teaching people, dealing with life's troubles from people who hated him, but also enjoying life's blessings along the way. And so our prayer today is, Father, help me make the most of my time right now, because right now is all I have. Help me never to assume I'll have tomorrow, and if I have tomorrow, tomorrow will work out the way that I think it's going to work out. Instead, help me realize my life is completely in your hands, and I trust you with it, and I'm not going to waste time worrying about what happens tomorrow. I'm going to focus on how to make the most of today to live for and glorify you.